The stage is set, the teams are primed, and the battle for glory is about to begin. From shocking upsets to predictable outcomes, let's preview the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Let's start with Pool A. So with Pool A, we've got France, New Zealand, Italy, Uruguay, and Namibia. And in fifth, I think it's going to be Namibia. Namibia did pretty well in African qualifying like they normally do. They did lose a game to the Ivory Coast though, and only just got through their group, but did comfortably win the final. They recently played against Uruguay, who's also in this group, and lost to them. So I really don't think they're going to be a banana skin for anybody in this championship. But hopefully they do make it difficult for the teams around them in their games. In fourth, I've gone with Uruguay. They are a good side, but I think they will struggle against the three Tier 1 nations in this pool. Rata is a very, very good scrum half. He'll be fantastic for them, but I don't think he'll bring enough to beat these Tier 1 nations. They did have a close game against Italy last year, but I think Italy will probably take them more seriously this time than they were then, and will probably come out ahead in that game. But they will be targeting that Italy game to try and qualify automatically for the next World Cup, as I think in third place it will be Italy. They're rather unfortunate with their pool draw. In another one, they might have been able to finish second, while having the hosts and one of the best teams in the world in your pool in France and the All Blacks is probably going to be too much for them to get past them. I do think that France game will be close like it was in the Six Nations, but I don't think they will have enough to get past them. Now, all comes down to this top two in this pool, France or New Zealand, the opening game of the World Cup. And I think in second place is going to be New Zealand. They did win the Rugby Championship and have looked very, very good this year, but I think France being at home, having the occasion, and I think they'll rise to the expectations to beat New Zealand. New Zealand should probably comfortably beat everyone else in this pool, but that first game really should be a fantastic kickoff to this Rugby World Cup. We saw a lot of France's depth in their games against Scotland, particularly that first one. And so I think they will have enough to beat New Zealand and be able to get past the other teams in this pool and finish top of the pool. Now for Pool B, you know what? I think we'll do this one at the end. Now for Pool C is a very interesting pool with Australia, Fiji, Wales, Georgia, and Portugal. I do think in fifth place here we are going to see Portugal. I do like their squad. They have some very good players like Rodrigo Marta on the wing. Even though they have looked good in their warm-ups, like comfortably beating the USA recently, I think they will struggle against these other teams. As we saw Portugal against Georgia earlier this year, getting quite heavily beaten by them in the Rugby Europe Championship final. Next, in fourth place, I have gone with Georgia. Georgia will probably try and target those Wales and Fiji games, maybe particularly that Wales game, as they did beat them at the end of last year and would love to show up a Six Nations team and keep trying to prove that they should be playing in that competition. If they did manage to do that and Wales managed to finish fourth, I think we might actually see a 24-team World Cup in 2027 to make sure the Tier 1 teams all qualify. And in third, maybe my first big call of this World Cup, I think Wales are going to finish third and they're not going to get out of the pool. Wales have just looked not very good under Gatland, and they've not looked fantastic for a couple of years either under Wayne Pivac before that. They couldn't beat an England team when they were 3 men up against them and just got comfortably beat by the Box. I'm really not expecting much from Wales, and I think they should be more worried about finishing fourth and not qualifying for the next World Cup than they should be about finishing second. And that means that in second place I have gone with Fiji. I think Fiji will be a bit of a surprise package in this pool and maybe at this World Cup overall. Pretty confident of them beating Wales, but I think they might just not quite have enough to get past Australia. They do have some fantastic players like Bill Mata, Botia, Radradra, just to name a few of them. And they've also got a maul now, which is really good. They've historically not had a maul. But yeah, that means that I think Australia is going to finish top. So they have picked an interesting squad, some quite young players and experienced players, but I think if I had to pick between them and Wales right now, I'd probably pick them winning that game. The Fiji game might be a bit more interesting because I think Fiji could win that game, but I just think Australia will probably just get past them with their experience at World Cups and having an experienced head coach who's sort of been there and done it at World Cups. They looked pretty poor in the Rugby Championship, but they did also play that game against New Zealand that they got very, very close to beating New Zealand in New Zealand, which doesn't happen very often. So I think Australians can maybe be a bit more confident going in this World Cup than maybe they were a couple of weeks ago. Pool D consists of Samoa, Chile, Argentina, England, and Japan. And in 5th place, I think is going to be Chile. I do really like Chile, and I think they are a very good team for where they're at. It is their first World Cup, and I think the players should be there and just try and enjoy themselves and enjoy the occasion that they're going to be having at their first ever World Cup. Their games will be very enjoyable to watch because they do play some fantastic rugby, led by their number 10, Rodrigo Fernandez. They are a growing rugby nation. This should be some invaluable experience for them. They will probably maybe look at that Samoa game as a game they can try and win, but Samoa have looked pretty good, but I still think that they will finish 4th in this group. Now, we did see them beat pool rivals Japan earlier this year in the PNC, but Japan were down a man for most of that game. I'm not necessarily sure you can read too much into it for the next time they meet each other. They do have some good players at Samoa, and they're looking like a team who could come and cause some upsets, unlike they did in 2019. And they will be eyeing up that Japan game because of their previous result against them and try and qualify automatically for the next World Cup in 3rd. Now, in 3rd place, I've gone with Japan. Japan have looked pretty poor this year. The loss to Samoa and being very, very comfortably put away by that Fiji side. So they're going to need to be careful that they actually manage to finish in this top 3 and don't drop down to 4th, which would mean they'd have to go through qualifiers for the next World Cup. Poor showing at this World Cup for Japan could scupper any chance or any hopes of them getting into the Rugby Championship in the near future. Now, probably the big blockbuster game in this group will be Argentina-England, which I think is the first game for each of those teams. And I think in 2nd place in this pool will come down to that game, and I think it will be England who finish 2nd. England look like a shell of the team that got to the 2019 final, and they look like they're lacking confidence while playing a system that lacks inspiration. The players don't really look happy. I think as an England fan, you can only hope that Borthwick's playing very simple rugby just so that they can get through this World Cup and not do anything too complex. And after the World Cup, you might start seeing improvements. If I was an England fan, I would probably be quite happy with a 2nd place finish, because if this Japan team does decide to turn up, it could very easily be a 3rd place finish again for England. And of course, that means I think Argentina will finish top of Pool D. I think they're coming to this World Cup quite strong. They had a good rugby championship by their standards, beating Australia and having that close game to South Africa. Now, what they will be worried about was that game against New Zealand, where they got very, very heavily beaten, but they probably aren't going to meet a team that could do that to them until a semi-final if they get there. So I think they are probably the best side on this side of the draw right now. I think they're comfortably better than England, and in that first game, England are probably now looking like they won't have their talisman captain in Owen Farrell. And now onto Pool B, which is being referred to as the Pool of Death. Now, Pool B consists of Romania, Scotland, South Africa, Tonga, and Ireland. And in 5th, I think it's going to be Romania. Now, Romania are interesting. Their head coach left in November in Andy Robinson, but I think I remember seeing somewhere that their current head coach is like technically the most successful head coach in professional rugby ever. And they've also brought Vern Cotter in as a consultant for this World Cup. I'm sure rabbits will be running scared everywhere, but there's some strange things in like the way they qualified was because Spain played ineligible players and that pushed them up in the Rugby Europe Championship because Spain had got a points deduction again. And Romania haven't really looked very good since Andy Robinson left. They didn't have a great Rugby Europe Championship, and they recently just got absolutely smashed by Italy. They were a man down for a lot of that game, but it's not a good look for them. However, they might be looking at that Tonga game as one they can win. And Tonga is who I'm going to have in 4th. Now, there is a lot of hype around this Tonga team because of players like Charles Piutau and other ex-All Blacks and other players like that who've been made available to play for Tonga. But to be honest, they've been pretty rubbish, losing all their games in the PNC and also the last time they played Romania, they did actually lose. So I wouldn't be shocked if they did end up finishing 5th, but if these players do click together finally, they could also maybe push up into that 3rd place, or maybe even that 2nd place if they do particularly well. But from what we've seen from them, I think a 4th place is what I'd be expecting. This game could potentially be a slip up for a team like Scotland if Scotland don't come in taking them seriously enough. I mean, the main talking point of this is 2nd, 3rd place, so let's jump to the top of the pool, and where I'm putting Ireland. Ireland are the world number 1s and have a fantastic 2023, being Grand Slam champions in the Six Nations and haven't lost a game yet at the time of recording. Scotland and South Africa will be trying to beat them and will be looking and will probably back themselves to beat them, but I think they are probably the best team in this pool right now. This is the big call. Am I going to sit here and say that Scotland are going to beat the 3-time and reigning world champions South Africa and qualify for the quarterfinals? No, I think South Africa are going to finish 2nd. If you'd asked me a couple weeks ago, I might have actually said Scotland was going to win, but these last couple of games against Wales, even though it was a very heavily rotated Wales team, and their performance against the All Blacks has probably made me think that South Africa are going to get through, even though the Scotland team does look good and they do have a team and the capabilities to beat South Africa. I just think it's going to be a bit too much for them. However, I don't think it will matter much when we get to the quarterfinals. But before that, don't forget to subscribe to stay up with everything I'll be doing during the World Cup. So my quarterfinals are France versus South Africa, Ireland versus New Zealand, England versus Australia, and Argentina versus Fiji. So I said it won't matter too much whoever finished 2nd out of Scotland or South Africa, and that's because I think regardless of that, France will win this quarterfinal. Even though South Africa do look good, their more recent performances have looked good, I think this France team have shown the level of depth they have and the level of quality they have over these last few games and over the last couple of years that South Africa haven't necessarily shown, that I think they will have enough to get past them, and having that big home support is going to be there to help them get in to that semi-final. Now for the next one, which is Ireland New Zealand, will the curse strike again for Ireland and will they be knocked out at this quarter-final stage, which they have never got beyond before? I think this will be a very close game, but I think Ireland will come out on top and they will finally get to a World Cup semi-final. But I just think Ireland are just a bit better than them right now. Now quarter-final 3, this is when we get into the second side of the draw, which consists of England versus Australia, or as I'm going to call it, the Eddie Jones Derby. And I think he will probably win this semi-final. I think his experience as a coach will help take him past the lesser experienced Steve Borthwick. And I think even though both teams maybe not where they would want to be going into a World Cup, I think Australia are playing better rugby than England right now. So I think Australia will progress to the semi-final. And then the last one is Argentina versus Fiji. This game should probably be a bit of a cracker with these two teams playing. I would love it if Fiji got to a semi-final, and I think absolutely everybody would, but I think we'd also equally love to see Argentina get to a semi-final, and that's who I think will get to the semi-final. I think Argentina, having the experience of a coach who's been to a World Cup quarter-final and won it rather controversially, but they did win it, and Australia did get to the final that year under Michael Cheika in 2015. But I wouldn't be shocked if Fiji did come out and win this game. I just think players like Emiliano Buffelli and Pablo Matera and Julian Montoya will probably really help this Argentina team get through to another World Cup semi-final. And what that would mean is in the first semi-final, we will have France versus Argentina. This game should be fiery, with these two teams having history at Rugby World Cups. Argentina beat them twice in 2007 to finish third by winning the bronze final. And they had a very close game in 2019 that France just snuck ahead and won. I think France will win this, but wouldn't it be amazing if Argentina got past them again and got to a World Cup final? But the quality of France and the backing of their home fans should be enough to get them to that World Cup final. And now for semi-final 2, which is Ireland versus Australia. I think this one kind of probably writes itself. I think Ireland will win, and probably win fairly comfortably. They will have already played 3 teams who are in the current rankings ranked higher than Australia just to get to this semi-final. And I think Australia have got to this point more because of the quality quality of team they're playing rather than how good they are, whereas I think Ireland are more the opposite. And we'll just touch on the bronze final, which would be Argentina versus Australia, and I think Argentina will probably win the bronze final once again and finish third for a second time at Rugby World Cup. And now for the big boy, the final. France versus Ireland is my final. This will be the first one ever to be competed against two Northern Hemisphere teams, and will also be Ireland's first ever World Cup final. But I think France will end their 3-game losing streak in World Cup finals and lift the William Webb Ellis Cup on the 28th of October 2023 at the Stade de France. It would be great to see Ireland win it, and they are statistically the worst team in the 5 Nations / Home Nations Championship of all time, having 25 wooden spoons. So it would really show how far that team has come in the last 20 years to go from being the worst team in the tournament to being the best team in the world. But France will finally take home the William Webb Ellis Cup. And I'm sure this World Cup will be full of controversies. And if you want to find out about 5 that happened at previous World Cups, check this video out right here. Thanks for watching.